Hi everybody, welcome to Unfun Stuff, the channel. I'm Chris Bromley, and today I want to talk about symbol identity. I was kicking around an idea for the past couple of days, weeks, years, I love symbols as a means of describing what characters do, which is kind of at odds with the reason why I started playing the game. I didn't really have any interest in the individual characters, but it's neat to think about how characters, capturing their essences, so quote unquote, with their symbols, and then how that translates to the game itself. And I think a lot of times when we look at cards, we see the designs of the characters and their flavor as a priority, when the symbol identity across the board should be more emphasized. I'm not a designer. Take everything I say here with a grain of salt, and I really wish that UVS Games' design team came out with something like this so we get more insight into what they do. But this is my list of what I would... This is my list of how I would define each symbol in their identities. Let's get right into it. So, again, I'm not a UVS designer. I'm just a guy who's played for a very long time. But I think that there being 12 symbols, 6 of them with a pair, right, an opposite, is really, really cool, and it gives us really, really neat opposed card design. And the fact that each card in the game, for the most part, has 3 symbols on them, gives us lots of ways to, apply these design ideas onto them. And you'll recognize a lot of these concepts, but I think it's really neat to think of them as opposed to an opposite. Let's get right into it. The first pairing is air and earth. Air's sub-theme, or main theme, is speed control. Speed boosts, speed minuses, with its sub-theme being clearing its card pool offensively, playing flash attacks, emphasizing blocking as its primary defensive capacity, using the EX keyword, big numbers on EX keyword, EX5, EX4, so on and so forth, committing and readying cards as a mini game, like, oh, I commit this for an effect, like a small effect, and then I have a way to ready it. See a lot of characters that do this thing, and I think it's a great way to show that the air symbol is like flowing, right? That it's reacting to its surroundings, and then attacking is kind of like more like a death by 1,000 cuts sort of thing. I would have the air symbol avoid the powerful keyword, the throw keyword, and flip costs. Because I think those are big for its opposite, which is the earth symbol. And again, absolutely, I would never put damage reduction on an air symbol card. Even if the card had air and earth on it, I think that an air-earth card, any card with the air symbol, should not ever reduce damage. Just because that's not how air defeats its opponent. It's 1,000 cuts, right? Like the wind, the mountain gets cut down by wind over 1,000 years, not by chipping at it or by mining it. On the other opposite spectrum, the earth symbol, I think, is all about big damage, buffs and debuffs. And its primary, everybody wants to block, right? But I think the air symbol should be the best at straight up blocking and making your thing easy enough to block, getting good block modifiers. Earth should be about, of course it's going to be blocking, but should have powerful, heavily costed damage debuffs. Flip costs and effects that force rivals to flip as a sub-theme, using throws, slow attacks to do lots of damage, the powerful keyword, and heavily costed powerful effects like resets. I would avoid the EX keyword, because that's not what a mountain does. A mountain doesn't move and hits you really hard. The flash keyword, and I would absolutely never want an earth symbol card to clear a card pool. Next up, I would have all and void. All is a symbol that I like to make fun of, because what does all mean, right? And I think it was created in a response to void, as opposed to it being a thing that they came up with naturally. But in theory, it's supposed to be about confidence, right? And and being about, your surroundings. And so its theme has pretty much always been card draw. And beyond that, it's hard. It's not the best at anything, but it kind of does everything a little worse than other symbols, just because it's generic, right? It's the all symbol. So I wouldn't have it avoid any effects, except for discard, which is the void thing, hand control. And maybe it's okay for like a like, let me look at your hand style effect, but discard I think should never be on an all symbol card. Void, I think is its primary theme is hand control. That doesn't necessarily just mean discard as a theme, but looking at the opponent's hand, saying, hey, you can't use this during this attack or something like that, right? Just shenanigans with hand has always been Void's thing. It's not what I would want Void to do. I wouldn't want Void to be about, I understand it's like nothing. It's about being at peace and having nothing, and if you have nothing in your hand, you have nothing. But I don't like discard, is what I'm saying. It's something in block denial as opposed to straight discard, right? Or shenanigans around block. It's pretty neat with on block triggers. If you block this, something detrimental might happen. And then generic cancels is a big thing Void should have access to. It's just like, hey, generic cancel that enhance, generic cancel that response. That's its power, is that it's got generic abilities, but they're heavily costed or gated, and they don't have access to a ton of other, like, very narrow responses. I would avoid generic card draw without cost or reason. And this is an important note, right? Every symbol is going to have to draw cards. Everybody draws cards. But all should do it the best. All should have stuff that's just like enhanced draw card. I think every other symbol should probably have some sort of cost involved, and Void especially, to draw cards should be like a very, very big deal. And then as far as do nots go, right, there's nothing off the table for Void, just because its antithesis is card draw. You can't make a symbol that doesn't draw cards, especially in this environment. Chaos and Order. Chaos used to be my favorite symbol, actually. But it doesn't do this stuff very well. I put some of the sub-themes, which it does do, but its biggest cool thing is its like big dumb combos that come out of randomized but controllable outcomes, right? Like situations where Not is a great example. I'll pick up the top card of my discard pile, discard a random card in my hand. Odds are that you're probably not gonna hit that card. Even if you do, I get this in momentum. But I want that card, and odds are I will get it. So randomized outcomes, not necessarily like, haha, funny. You can have good effects, but they should have a random element to them, because that's chaotic. As a sub-theme, right, grabbing fast momentum, adding to your own checks, strong effects with momentum costs, and face-up momentum effects. That's kind of been established with Universus. They're big time on Chaos having a face-up momentum theme. I would avoid targeted effects and stun, because that's an order thing. And then I definitely would never want a Chaos symbol to have, or a Chaos card to have a symmetrical effect, like both of us draw, or let's both do a thing, or like that's something that order should be known for, is like is hey, this is an order card and here's a very symmetrical effect, very powerful, but we're both doing it because it's about justice and everybody getting its thing. And that's where the sub theme, right, comes in, is denial of board, targeted or otherwise. The stun sub theme, effects that activate when your rival does something to you. Justice, right? Hey, you did that to me, well, I'll do this to you. I think that really encompasses what the order symbols should be doing in a perfect world, right? Instead of board denial, it's cool. That's just what order does now. But I think that a lot of its effects should be focused on retribution. Well, maybe not retribution in card mechanics, right? Justice as a like, hey, you messed with me, well, I'm gonna mess with you back, because that's what symmetrical effects should be doing. I would avoid having power effects with momentum costs, gaining fast momentum, because that's what its opposite Chaos does. And it definitely should never do a randomized outcome. Death and life. I have seen so many cards that have death and life on them that it's like the line has been blurred so much. And if I were, the guy in charge of everything and I owned the company, somebody gave me billions of dollars to do this, I would never again allow cards to share opposites on the spectrum. There are enough pairings. You don't need to have death life. You don't need to have all void. You don't need to have they should just not be paired, because they are opposites. They're diametrically opposed, and it's more interesting if they are opposed to each other. The theme for death is negative costs for positive effects. I lose health to get a big, powerful upgrade. I destroy foundation for a powerful thing, right? But not necessarily self, right? I'll remove this other foundation to do this thing, right? I'll lose my health for this thing. I'll remove a card from your card pool that's detrimental, but I'll get this, big effect. That's what death is about, right? Is that death is a cycle, and life is the opposite of it. The sub-theme is life lost, like I've said, foundation denial via destruction, destroy costs for powerful effects. There's nothing really for it to avoid because its theme is mainly about having powerful effects that have high costs, high detrimental negative effects. Eventually you will run out of, life. And I don't think it should ever be gaining life, even if it's got heavy costs. Life's theme, as the name implies, I think should be life gain. In the same way that Earth is, damage reducing things, life is gaining life. And I think that because the attack is still hitting, its life gain should be higher than an attack is reduced on average via the Earth symbol, right? It shouldn't be impossible to kill a life symbol deck, but gaining a lot of life is less good than reducing the damage of an attack outright. I think there's benefits, right? Because you can damage reduce something too much. If it's a 4 damage move, you get minus 6 damage. If you gain 6 life, you overheal, right? And you do minus damage to the next move, so of course it's a balance. You gotta figure it out. But thank God I'm not the designer, right? A heavy cost for progressive difficulty tricks. This is something that the life symbol's been doing for as long as I can remember. Is just, hey, this next card's gonna ignore progressive or something like that. That's been its something. It should be a heavy cost. Life gain is a means of damage reduction I talked about already. I think it should avoid negative costs for positive effects. You can't always avoid this. Destroy costs are pretty much going to be on every symbol because people need to get out of deadlock, for better or worse. But it should not ever burn or lose life for a cost or an effect. It just shouldn't be burning people to death. Then good and evil, which I think is one of the most fun color pairings because it's kind of like a vague antithesis to each other, where it comes from good having simple, strong effects and evil having convoluted, strong effects. But their primary theme for good should be attack and board protection. Protection for my stuff. Hey, no touching. No touching should be the good guy thing. Like, I'm here, I'm protecting my stuff, I'm protecting my people, and my people, my stuff is my board, my attacks, right? I think that the good symbol should have the most protection for its own things, and it should be hard to break through its simple, strong defensive and offensive tools. Should be building foundations via effects, and avoid playing attacks from anywhere within their hand, including the echo keyword, which I think has been established as the evil symbol's thing since set 4 of My Hero. Is it set 4? No, it's set 3 actually. There were a bunch of, but set 4 really had like a bunch of them. Or set 5, right? The Heisei Chi whatever guys. I don't think the good symbol should ever be hacking checks. It should not have board interaction in general. If you're able to protect your board, I don't think it should ever touch my opponent's stuff. You should have to play through their stuff in the same way that they have to play through your stuff. The evil symbol's theme should be check hacking, because that's evil. And one thing I don't see a lot on evil cards, which is I would like to see more often, is Pyrrhic decisions, right? Facing a choice. Like, hey, I'm going to do this thing. You can do this other really bad thing if you want to cancel it. And in fact, the other option should be very detrimental, probably worse some of the time, right? Situations where I'm like, I would like to discard a card from hand. Or you can destroy a foundation, or discard this attack, or something like that, right? Or this attack gets this doesn't do any damage during the damage step, right? Things like that should be what the evil symbol does, because that's what a mustache twirling evil villain does, right? It just gives you choices, right? And watch you agonize over the details. And then it's been established that evil is all about playing attacks from anywhere than his hand, from discard pile, picking them up, playing echo. And then I think it should have complicated, powerful effects, because a villain's plan is always convoluted. I don't think the evil symbol should have protection for its board. That's good symbol's thing. Of course, every symbol needs a little bit of it, but I think good symbols should be the best at it, and evil should be at the worst at it, right? So if you stun out an evil character, oh no, you've foiled my plan, should be sort of a thing there. And you know, like, we can be effective without board protection. Evil already has trouble with people interacting with its board in this format. It's something they're doing already, so it's not as if it's a bad symbol because it doesn't have this protection. I think that's the thing that you know, a little bit of a side here is that, you know, each symbol having detriments and positives is a good thing, because it means that the game is going to have more interaction points that are more unique from symbol to symbol, and for the ones that aren't opposed, right, color combinations, right, symbol combinations can shore up the weaknesses of individual cards. You know, like evil doesn't have the stage or attack protection, but maybe it has tons and tons of, you know, board build, or sorry, it has a lot of card draw to be able to get a big board with the all symbol or something like that. And then it should never build foundations via effects. Fire and water is a cool one that I think that fire is like one of the least developed symbols. It's just like generic aggro, and I think that its identity came pretty late in its UFS career as like the milling or removing cards as a resource, and I think that's really cool. But it should be higher costed. You should see a fire deck run out of steam much quicker than they do right now. So I'd actually up the amount of aggression they can put out. If any, like in my ideal world, the only symbol that could ever turn to you should be a fire deck. But it should be a situation where like they drew the nuts and you were interacting with them. But its theme should be like burning out quick, because it's using all of its board, its deck, and it should be getting lots and lots of damage and speed at a very high cost. I would avoid printing defense on fire cards, and you know, apart from that, nothing's. Of course, it's going to need some defense, but it should be less effective than other cards. And I think that card for card fire cards that have fire on them that have defensive outputs should be less effective than other ones. For instance, if I was printing cooperation offer, right, the fire one would be flip commit as opposed to just flip. So higher costs for the same defensive ability that another symbol like water would get. Water, on the other hand, like I just said, I think its theme should be effective and adaptable defense. It's harder to define because good defense is just, you know, it's multi-layered. But that should be its primary thing. It should be the opposite as fire. It should probably never be turn toing you, but have an emphasis on defense, you know, because that's water's flexible and erodes things. It doesn't, you know, I'm sure that somebody's been buffeted by a giant wave, but takes a while to get there. Sub-theme being the combo keyword and convoluted combos in general, I think it's very water. Card pull flood is sort of a thing that it's been doing forever, and I think if any symbol should have like mill as its as one of its primary win cons, it should be water. That's sort of a weird place to go, right? And certainly people don't like being milled out, but I think it's a natural end state. It's just, you know, in this game, I think that's a pretty that's not necessarily a popular opinion. I don't think water should have access to effective aggressive tools in the same way that the fire cards should have higher costs for their defensive tools. Water cards with water on it should have higher costs for their aggressive tools, and then it should just never have self-mill. You know, like one more difficulty or one more cost added to cards that have water as opposed to other things. Well, that's it. We reached the end. I think this is a cool exercise, and I think that everybody should come up with their own ideas for this. The reason for it is because it exposes what you think of the symbols, and I think can help you deck build. And I think the best, most revealing version of this would be one where like a designer came out and pointed out what their internal rankings are for things, right? And an important bit here is, again, the do not column, right? A card with this symbol should never do this thing. It's such an awesome thing to me. As somebody who made, you know, music for a long time in my own career, being told I can't use this thing or this note or this scale or whatever the case could be really, really great for me creatively, because having a box, a stringent box for me to figure out around it, got my creative juices flowing. It was really cool. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you enjoy your life, and have a nice day.